All right. Uh, we had discussed the last point which we had discussed yesterday was Aristotle's theory of equality and justice. This is what we had discussed. Now, going further from there, Aristotle talks about three kinds of justice: distributive justice, retributive justice, and commutative justice. Aristotle talks about three kinds of justice: distributive justice, retributive justice, coming out of the word retribution, and third is commutative justice. I just want to clarify the term. Right. Distributive justice means, well, just a minute. All right. So, distributive justice means something which is concerned with distribution of resources or allocation of resources and wealth of the country, of the state. So, distributive justice, Aristotle talks about three kinds of justice: distributive, retributive, and commutative. All right. So, distributive justice is concerned with allocation of resources and wealth, and obviously, according to the merit or as per the law. According to the merit or as per the law means distribution of wealth and resources in accordance with the merit or as per the law. Right. Now, this is the concern of the legislators. Means this comes under the domain of distributive justice according to Aristotle. Who will be taking decision regarding distribution of wealth and resources? This decision will be taken by the legislators, means the parliament or the legislatures of the state. So, first kind of justice, as explained by Aristotle, is distributive justice, which is concerned with distribution of wealth and resources, right, in accordance with either the merit or as per the law or as per the customs and traditions, and that will be coming under the domain of the parliament or the legislature. Point is clear. The second kind of justice that Aristotle talks about is retributive justice. Retributive justice means giving punishment to the guilty or giving punishment to the guilty, or paying damages to the people who are the sufferers, paying damages to the sufferers. All right. So this comes within the domain of the judges. This comes within the domain of judiciary. So the first kind of justice that Aristotle talks about is distributive justice, and that is concerning distribution of wealth and resources of the state. All right. And concerning distribution of wealth and resources of the state in accordance with the merit or in accordance with the law or customs and traditions, and that is decided by the legislature or the parliament. So that becomes distributive justice. The second justice that I have just explained is retributive justice. Retributive, the other term that we can use for retribution is corrective justice. Means rectifying the error. You can call it retributive justice, you can call it rectificatory justice also, because you are rectifying the wrong, or you can call it corrective justice. So corrective justice, retributive justice, right? Corrective justice, retributive justice, or rectificatory justice, it is one and the same. And this comes within the domain of the judges. This comes within the domain of judiciary, and this is concerning awarding punishment or paying damages, or basically this is concerning full restoration of the loss. If you have suffered, so giving you the justice. Those people who have suffered, they should be getting a justice. So it is known as restoration of loss. This is concerning the rectificatory aspect of the justice, or retributive, or you can also call it corrective justice. So this comes within the domain of judiciary. First justice comes within the domain of parliament or legislature. Second is coming within the domain of the judges or the judiciary. The third kind of justice that Aristotle talks about is third kind of justice that Aristotle is talking about is commutative justice. COMMUTATIV, commutative justice. Now, commutative justice is basically regulation of voluntary transactions that takes place in the state. Now, let me explain what do I mean by voluntary transaction that takes place in the state. Now, in the state, basically, entire state, the functioning of the state is done on the basis of the contract. We all have. See, you have joined an institute, so there is a contract between you and the institute. I am teaching you on this platform, so there is a contract between the institute and me. All right. You are going to railway, you are going to Mumbai, you are buying a flight ticket. It is a contract between you and the, and the air authorities. All right. You are going by train from Chennai to Hyderabad. You are going by train. There's a contract between you and the railways. You are buying a ticket, so they have to run the train. They have to ensure that you reach the destination on time. So there is a contract between you and. So you are buying a product from a shop. You are paying some. You are buying a product only after you have paid the money. And when you have paid the money, you want to ensure that the product that is selling should be of a good quality. So there is a contract. All right. You have been provided with the electricity. All right. There is a contract between you and the company which is providing you the power, that you will be making the payment as per the the use of the power, as per the use of the power, as per the meter. You will be making the payment to the electricity board. All right. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is that, so in state, see, entire relationship within the state is contractual, is based on the contract. If you are buying a product, the quality of the product is bad, he has to, the owner, the shopkeeper has to take it back, or he has to provide you the replacement. All right. You are buying a product, there is after-sales service, and they have to provide you after-sales service. Which the entire relationship in society is based on the contract. All right. Now, this contract should be, so the contract is known as voluntary transaction. This contract is known as voluntary transaction. All right. Now, in case of any issue in voluntary transaction, in case of any issue out of this contract or of this transaction, then where will you go? Are you getting a point? If you are buying a product and the company is not prepared to provide you the after-sales service, where will you go? You will go to the Consumer Redressal Forum. You will go there. So, three kinds of justice that Aristotle talks about: distributive, retributive, and commutative. Commutative is again a system of justice which is based on regulation of the contract, which has to deal with the regulation of the contract, or it has to deal with the regulation of the voluntary transaction that takes place in the society. And this also comes within the domain of the judges. This also comes within the domain of judiciary. All right. You are buying a product, it is not working. You are asking for replacement, it is not being done. Again, you will go to the court. Again, you will go to the Consumer Redressal Forum. So Aristotle, after talking about the relationship between equality and justice, also talks about three different categories of justice: distributive, retributive, and commutative. Hope the point is clear. There is no confusion about this. Point is clear. Now, Aristotle's theory of constitution and government. The other aspect of Aristotle, which becomes important from the point of view of examination also, it is Aristotle's theory of constitution and government. See, Aristotle was searching for a very stable constitution. I told you while giving a background of Aristotle, Aristotle had done a study of 158 different constitutions of Greek city-state in order to find out the most suitable, most stable, and most workable constitution. He wanted to find out. That was the purpose of his research. That was the purpose of his study when he studied 158 constitutions of the different Greek city-states. He wanted to find out which constitution is most suitable, most workable, and most stable. So the method since he was studying all the constitution in order to come to a conclusion. So this method is called empirical method because it is directly related with the study of different constitutions of different states. All right. So this can be called the empirical method because he was directly studying the working of the different constitutions. And this also, and that is why he was also called a father of comparative politics because he was using the comparative method. He studied different 158 different constitution of the Greek city-states in order to find out which system is working better in which constitution. All right. So 158 different constitutions, and he wanted to analyze which aspect of which constitution is better. Correct. So that he could come out with his opinion that which form of government or which constitution is the best constitution. Right. So this could also be called a comparative method. The method employed by Aristotle while he studied 158 constitutions could also be described as a comparative method. Right. Now, why he undertook the study of so many constitutions? The reason is very clear, because he was absolutely perturbed and disturbed because of instability in Greek city-states. See, all the Greek city-states, they were suffering from instability. Okay, there was a lot of revolt, there was a social movement. So the entire Greek city-states, there was a political and social instability. Right? So he wanted to develop a model constitution based on the study of 158 constitution. He wanted to develop a model constitution which could ensure political stability. See, Aristotle is a political philosopher who is very conscious and very cautious about the political stability because he is a conservative thinker and he was always wanting to avoid revolution or avoid the movement. And in the process, he was looking out for a very stable constitution which could prevent the revolution, which could prevent the movement for all the time to come. So he was a very conservative and he did not believe in revolutionary method. Right. So on the basis of his study of 158 constitutions, he came out with the classification of government. Okay, came out with a theory of classification of the government. And what was the basis? The basis was how many people are the rulers? I mean, how many people are involved in ruling and governance? Right. Based on the number of rulers, whether the number is one, whether the number is few, or whether the number is many. So there could be three possibilities. One possibility is that there could be one person. Right? If there is a one person, okay, it could be monarchy. If there are few persons, it could be aristocracy. If there are more persons, it could be democracy. Are you getting a point? So his classification is based on the number of rulers, number one. And the second basis of his classification is whether the rulers are working in their own self-interest, or whether they are working in the interest of the public. So the two criteria. One, number of rulers. What we are discussing Aristotle's classification of government. So one criteria is that depending on the number of rulers, and second criteria is whether the rulers, they are working in accordance with their own self-interest, they are subserving their own selfish interest, or they are serving the interest of the public. So these two criteria. Now let us try to find out because if the number of rulers, okay, is one, all right, and if they are working for the public interest, all right, if they are working for the interest of the public, Aristotle would call it monarchy. This is normal. If the number of ruler is one and they are working for the public interest, it will be called monarchy. But if the ruler of number is one and they are working for their own self-interest, okay, this would be perverted. This will be the distorted form. If they are working in public interest, it is a normal form. If they are working in their own self-interest, this is a perverted form, a distorted form. So if the number of ruler is one and they are working for the public interest, Aristotle would call it monarchy. If the number of ruler is one and they are working for satisfying their own self-interest, this is a perverted form, distorted form, and Aristotle would call it tyranny. Point is clear? If the number of ruler is one and they're working for public interest, it is called monarchy. If the number of ruler is one, they are working for their own self-interest, it would be called tyranny. All right? And tyranny is a perverted form, distorted form. Again, number two, if the number of rulers are few, all right, and they are they are working for the satisfaction of the public interest. If the number of rulers are few and they are working for satisfaction of the public interest, that would be known as aristocracy. All right. And again, if the number of rulers is few and they are working to serve their own selfish interest, if they are working to serve their own selfish interest, if they are working to serve their own self-interest, that would be a perverted form and it will be called oligarchy. Number of rulers is few. If they are working for the public interest, aristocracy. Yes, aristocracy. But if they are working for their own self-interest, it would be called oligarchy. Point is clear? Oligarchy means rich few people. So it will be known as oligarchy. Third, if the number of rulers are many, all right, if the number of rulers are many and they are working for the public interest, it will be called polity, P-O-L-I-T-Y. It will be called polity. And if the number of rulers are many, and if they are working for satisfaction of their own selfish interest, that would be called democracy. So Aristotle presumes that democracy, if it is working for the interest of the rulers, if the number of rulers are many and they are working for satisfaction of their own selfish interest, it would be called democracy. So according to Aristotle, democracy is a form of government where the rulers, they are working for satisfaction of their own self-interest. So, but if the number of rulers are many and they work for satisfaction of the public interest, Aristotle would call it polity. So, according to Aristotle, the best form of government is polity. Why? Because the number of rulers are large, are many. Means many people are participating. This leads to empowerment of large number of people. So many people participating in the public interest, it is polity. So according to Aristotle, the best form of government is polity. All right. Means what we have seen is that Aristotle's classification of government is based on number of rulers, number one, and whether they are working for the public interest or they are working for their own self-interest. All right. One more important point. Aristotle has given a concept of cycle of change. A cycle of change means this form of government that I have just talked about. Whether you talk about monarchy or you talk about aristocracy or you talk about oligarchy or you talk about polity or you talk about democracy. All the form of government, all the different classification of the government that Aristotle has given, he says that it is cyclical. Means one form would lead to another form. So there would be cyclical change. Maybe initially, when there are many rulers, they are working for the public interest for some time. So it becomes democracy. But after some time, they turn into it's polity, but after some time they turn into democracy. So again, the circle keeps on moving. So from one form of government to another form of government. This means This means monarchy is likely to lead to, okay, monarchy is likely to lead to tyranny. And from tyranny, you will be coming to aristocracy. From aristocracy, you will be moving towards oligarchy. And from oligarchy, you will be moving towards polity. And from polity, you will be moving towards democracy. So this change would be cyclical. This is what Aristotle says. All right. Now, means this is not a pure qualification. This is not a pure classification in the sense that single government may embrace different kind of features. Means under normal circumstances, when they are working for a public interest or when they are working for the interest of their own self-interest. All right. So aristocracy would be generating into an oligarchy. Democracy, polity would be degenerating into democracy. So this change, he says, is the cyclical. Right. Now, the best form of government, I have said, is polity. Now, why polity is the best form of government? All right. Because according to Aristotle, polity is rule of the middle class. Why? Because it is based on Aristotle's principle of golden mean. Right. Polity is situated between the two extremes. One extreme is oligarchy, and other extreme is democracy. So polity is called best government. Why? Because it is based on Aristotle's rule of golden mean. It is situated between two extreme forms. One is the oligarchy, and another is the democracy. All right. So polity is suitable and known as the most suitable form of government according to Aristotle, because it is based on the rule of golden mean. And why rule of golden mean? Because it is in between oligarchy and democracy. All right. Now, means oligarchy means rule of rich few. All right. Oligarchy means rule of rich few, and democracy means rule of many. All right. And rule of many means rule of many ignorant people. Rule of many is many ignorant people or ignorant poor people. So in between the rule of ignorant many or rule of rich few people, it is better to have a polity. So according to Aristotle, according to rule of golden mean, polity provides a government which is led by the middle class. All right. So according to Aristotle, what he's saying is that it is a rule that who possesses some moderate wealth, neither they are too rich, nor they are suffering from extreme poverty. They are likely to provide a more stable system, according to Aristotle, because it says polity is a rule of middle class. And it says, according to rule, those people who possess moderate wealth. So in polity, who are the rulers? The middle class. Again, the rule of golden mean. So they are neither too rich, all right? Oligarchy is very rich few people. So neither they are too rich, nor it is a rule of ignorant, nor it is rule of the ignorant people, nor it is ruled by the people who are very poor. So in between the extremely rich people and extremely poor people, what comes in between is a polity. So that is why polity, according to Aristotle, is the best form of government, because it is based on the rule of golden mean. All right. Now, he is giving a justification, which is that both the rule of rich and the rule of poor have their own typical problems. If there is a rule of rich, it will have its own problem. If there is a rule of poor, it will have its own problem. Rich as well as poor, they are inclined to be committing, are likely to get more involved in corruption, are going to more involved in crime. According to Aristotle, rich as poor means both the extreme. On the one hand, you have extreme richness. On the other hand, you have the extreme poverty. And according to Aristotle, under both the circumstances, the rulers are likely to get involved in crime and likely to get involved in corruption. Why? Now, the rich people, okay, would always have the lust for property. They want to become rich further. They want to become more and more rich. Again, poor people, they have nothing. All right. So they would be more easily induced to corruption. They would be more induced to committing crimes because they want to also earn money. All right. So according to Aristotle, neither rich nor poor are in the habit of obeying the law. So that is why he's calling his rule the rule of golden mean. These are the people who are in the middle class. Middle class, they are the people who would always be following the rules. So the people, if they are neither rich nor poor, if they belong to the middle class, they will always be in the habit of obeying the laws. And that you must have seen in our own country. That middle class is a class which is always good, though they are ambitious, but at the same time, they would never try to go against the legal system. They will not try to go against the law. So they would always be obeying the law. All right. Now, he says that rich people do not trust the poor and poor people do not trust the rich. So there cannot be any kind of coordination between people who are too rich and too poor. So rich will not trust the poor because they will say that our wealth may be taken away by the poor people. And poor doesn't trust the rich. So neither rich nor poor, they are trusting each other. However, according to Aristotle, both rich and poor will trust the middle class. Both rich and poor will be trusting the middle class. Why? Aristotle gives a reason. Rich is not trusting the poor is not trusting the rich, but both are trusting the middle class. Why both are trusting the middle class? Because middle class people are the people of reason. They have a moderate wealth and they are in the habit of obeying laws. All right. So both rich and poor, they will be supporting the middle class. All right. So polity is the best practicable form of government. All right. Monarchy or the rule of philosopher king, as Plato has talked about, that is unachievable. According to Aristotle, monarchy or the rule of philosopher king is an ideal goal. Okay, because one person working in the interest of the public, according to Aristotle, that is the best possible, that is the best government, that is the ideal situation. All right, but polity, which is a rule of middle class, is the best practicable. If monarchy is the ideal form of government, polity is the best practicable form of government according to Aristotle. All right. And it says that both democracy and tyranny are the worst form of government. Means large number of people, okay, large number of people working for the self-interest, so leading to more and more corruption. So he says that democracy and tyranny. Tyranny means when one ruler is working for satisfaction of his own self-interest. So according to Aristotle, democracy and tyranny, they are the worst form of government, and polity is the best practicable government. All right. Polity is the best practicable government. Any question if you want to ask on this, Aristotle's classification of government? All right. Now, the last aspect of Aristotle's theory of revolution. Aristotle's theory of revolution. Aristotle was a conservative thinker, and he never wanted any radical or revolutionary change. That is why he wanted to find out a very stable kind of constitution so that revolution could be avoided. So one point should be very clear about Aristotle, that Aristotle was a status quoist. He never wanted any radical change, and he never wanted even a small change. Let me tell you. What is revolution? According to Aristotle, any change, big or small, okay, sudden or gradual, partial or complete, any change comes under the category of revolution. What do you find? Usually, when we talk about revolution, what we have in mind is a radical change. But Aristotle's definition of revolution is entirely different. He says that any change, big or small, sudden or gradual, partial change or a complete change, they all would be coming under the category of revolution. All right. Aristotle wanted to favor stability, as we have just now studied. He wanted to favor a status quo over revolution. So given the choice, now if you compare Aristotle and Karl Marx wanted revolution, but Aristotle wanted stability. Aristotle wanted status quo. All right. Means he wanted the rulers, he wanted the ruling class to study the causes of revolution so that they would remain vigilant in order to prevent the occurrence of revolution. Aristotle had given advice to the ruling class that you should be vigilant. He advised them to look into the causes of revolution at different places. Look into the cause of revolution. And when you become aware of the different causes of revolution, you can take measures. You can remain vigilant, and you can prevent the occurrence of revolution. So, preventing the occurrence of revolution would be possible only when the rulers, they have studied the causes of revolution. All right. Now, so Aristotle's Politics is a very exhaustive work on revolution. All right. And he has suggested different causes for the occurrence of revolution. And it could be divided into the common causes, the general causes of revolution, and it could be other categorized into the specific causes of revolution. All right. So, regime is specific causes of revolution. In one particular regime, if there is a revolution, it would be called a specific cause. Or other cause could be coming under the cause of general causes. All right. So, while talking about the causes of revolution, Aristotle has suggested general causes of revolution and regime-specific causes of revolution. Right. Now, let us try to find out what are the most common causes of revolution according to Aristotle. Right? According to Aristotle, the most prominent common cause for revolution in different states is it is a feeling of inequality. Aristotle says feeling of inequality among people is the most volatile cause, most fertile cause of revolution in different states. So the first common cause that Aristotle is talking about so far as occurrence of a revolution is concerned, Aristotle says it is feeling of inequality among people. And he goes on to add, this feeling cannot be real, and this feeling cannot be real. This could be imaginary feeling also. Now try to understand the point. Aristotle says the most common cause for revolution is a feeling of inequality among people. It could be a real feeling and it could be an imaginary feeling. No, imaginary feeling means we are being maltreated. We are being maltreated by the government, even though it may not be there in reality. So whether it is an imaginary feeling or whether it is a real feeling, the feeling of inequality among the people is the most fertile general cause of revolution according to Aristotle. And in order to avoid revolution, which comes out of the reason of inequality in society, Aristotle has prescribed, he has given a prescription. What I have said so far, that the most common fertile cause for the occurrence of revolution is a feeling of inequality among people. And this feeling could be imaginary and this feeling could be real. All right. So he has suggested, he has given certain prescriptions to avoid revolution, okay, that emerges out of inequality in society. Okay. Now, what is the solution given by Aristotle? Treat equals equally. We have studied that. Treat equals equally. Number two, treat unequals unequally. That also we have studied, right? Number three, preventing concentration of wealth in few hands. Number four, promoting the growth of the middle class. So four prescriptions exceptions have been made by Aristotle to avoid revolution that emerges because of the feeling of inequality among the people, and to avoid those revolution and to prevent those revolution, he has given his prescription by citing he has given four important suggestions. One, equal should be treated equally, unequal should be treated unequally, and concentration of wealth should always be prevented. And number four, the growth of the middle class should be promoted, because middle class is the stable class. Middle class is the class which provides the stability to the society. All right. So this is what is Aristotle's theory, one of the causes of revolution that Aristotle has talked about, feeling of inequality among the people, and the prescriptions that I have just now given. Now, if we try to compare Plato with Aristotle, in order to provide a solution to the social instability, in order to provide a solution for the social instability, Aristotle has given a very radical kind of solution. He has talked about the rule of the philosopher king. All right. But Aristotle has given a very conservative solution. All right. And Aristotle has given a very conservative solution. And what prescription he has given, I have already told you. All right. Now, what are the other causes of revolution? One cause of revolution that Aristotle has said is feeling of inequality, the most fertile cause. Dissatisfaction with the existing distribution of power and prestige. The way wealth and prestige has been distributed in the society. So again, we are discussing the same point, but slightly in a different manner. Means dissatisfaction with the existing distribution of power and prestige. All right. Some people, they are getting very good status. Other people, they are not getting a good status. All right. Some people are getting a lot of respect. Other people are not receiving any respect at all. So how this wealth and respect or prestige is distributed in the society? So if there is a dissatisfaction in the society because of a distribution of wealth is not very proper, all right, so that could also lead to the cause of revolution. And he said that this dissatisfaction that Aristotle is talking about, this dissatisfaction could be limited to a particular segment, particular sector, particular segment of society, a particular group of people, all right, but it must be checked immediately. Even when there is dissatisfaction among the small section of the population, Aristotle says it must be checked immediately in order to avoid revolution. All right. So Aristotle says that it should be suppressed. Even when there is a dissatisfaction in the small section of the society or a small segment of the society, that must not be tolerated. That must be suppressed immediately. All right? Because if it is suppressed, it fails. It will fail. And your aim is to suppress the revolution so that revolution can be failed. Then he says that if it succeeds, it will result into overthrow of the existing regime. All right? And it will lead to shifting of power from one party to another party. All right. Not necessarily when another party comes to power, he changes the constitution. No, he may carry the same constitution. But Aristotle is saying, what he's suggesting that Even if there is a dissatisfaction in the small segment of the population, that must be suppressed immediately. All right. Because if it succeeds, it will lead to overthrow of the regime. And Aristotle doesn't want any change of the regime. All right. Now, he goes on further. He says that there are, he tries to find out what are the sources of dissatisfaction that leads to revolution. First, he said, even if there is a dissatisfaction among the small segment of the population, that must be suppressed. Second, he says that let us find out what are the sources of dissatisfaction that could lead to revolution, so that you could prevent the occurrence of such dissatisfaction. You got the point? The need is to prevent the growth of dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction must not be there. So how to prevent the dissatisfaction? So first he tries to find out what are the sources of dissatisfaction among the people. All right. Aristotle says the seeds of dissatisfaction or the seeds of revolution is always in the mind of the people. Seeds of revolution are always in the mind of the people. What does he mean when he says mind of the people? He says that when people are suffering from a feeling of insecurity. So the first source of dissatisfaction among the people is in the minds of the people. Minds of the people means when people are gripped with the sense of insecurity, the chances are that they would become rebellious and they would raise a banner of revolt against the state. All right. So control that source of dissatisfaction. And what is that? He says the mind of the people. First seed of satisfaction in the mind of the people, and that comes out of a source of a feeling of insecurity. So the state must not allow the feeling of insecurity emerge among the people. Number two, when people feel, second cause of what? Second cause of dissatisfaction among the people, which can lead to revolution. Second cause, when the people feel that they have been deprived of the power and honor which they deserve. Means when people feel, again a psychological cause, when people feel that they have been deprived of the power or they have been deprived of a status which they deserve. When people feel that they are being deliberately denied, they are being deliberately deprived of the power and the honor which they deserve. This is the second cause. Second cause. Third cause. Economic inequality. When there is growing economic inequality between rich and poor. All right. Because poor cannot tolerate rich people leading a luxurious life and they are being denied of the basic amenities of life. Okay. The third cause that Aristotle talks about was of what? Source of dissatisfaction. And what is that? When the people realize about the economic inequality. All right. Economic inequality between rich and poor is yet another cause that leads to dissatisfaction among the people. All right. Because poor would not tolerate that the some people are living in luxurious lifestyle, and we are being denied of the basic rights or basic amenities of life. All right. So economic inequality. So Aristotle says, and that is why Aristotle has talked about the role of the middle class. Okay, so Aristotle that in case there is a presence of a strong middle class, right, between the two, if there is a presence of a strong middle class between the two, possibility of a revolution could always be minimized. All right. Then he talks about 4 general causes of revolution. All right. I'll just be giving you the points. There is no need to discuss no need to elaborate all these points. I'll just give the point. What are the other general causes, okay, that Aristotle gives for the revolution? Number 1, when society is imbalanced. Society is imbalanced means rich is becoming richer and poor is becoming poorer. So you call it an imbalanced society. When society is imbalanced, so this could be a cause, general cause for revolution. Number 2, when there is increase in corruption of society. When society is very corrupt, this could also lead to revolution. Number 3, when there are too much influx of the foreigners. When there is too much influx of the foreigners, for example, a large number of Bangladeshi migrants, they entered inside West Bengal and Assam, creating a problem, creating a revolution-like situation. So according to Aristotle, when he talks about the general causes, he says that when there are too many influxes of foreigners in the country. All right. And the fourth general cause that Aristotle gives is that when people in general, when masses in general, they are inclined to bring about a change. When people in general, they are inclined to bring about a change. So 4 general causes: imbalanced society, corrupt society, too much influx of the foreigners, and when there is a general inclination among the people to change the world, to bring about a change. How can revolution be prevented? Number 1, preventing dissatisfaction among any community. Preventing dissatisfaction among any community. All right. Number 2, constitution should be based on constitution should be created after consulting the majority of the people, but minorities should not feel cheated. Again, role of golden mean. What says that constitution that should be prepared, that should be based on the consent of the majority of the people, but at the same time, it must not ignore the interest of the minorities. Making a constitution, developing a constitution with the consent of the majority of the people, but don't ignore the interest of the minorities as well. All right. Number 3, he says, inculcating a sense of discipline among the people for law and constitution. Inculcating a sense of discipline among the people for law and constitution of the country. Next point, what we are discussing, how revolution can be prevented. Next point, no individual should be allowed to become too powerful. Don't allow any individual to become too powerful. All right. Next point, political offices should not be allowed to be used for personal gain. Political offices should not be allowed to be used for personal gain. All right. A state-controlled system of education in which masses should be educated to use their wealth for charitable purposes. There should be a state-controlled system of education, and masses should be taught, masses should be educated to use their wealth and property for charitable purposes, for the interest of the society. Right. Nothing should be allowed in extreme form. Always follow a rule of a golden mean. Any extreme measure should always be avoided. Nothing should be allowed in the extreme form. All right. So that is why it suggests that whatever the state is deciding, whatever the rulers decide, they should always keep in mind the rule of the golden mean and always try to avoid the extremes. All right. And that is why it talks about a polity as a form of government. And that is why polity, he talks about the polity of the government, and polity is known as a mixed kind of constitution. Polity, because it avoids, it takes all good aspects and from the different constitutions, and it avoids extreme. That is why polity is the best form of government because it is based on, it is known as the mixed constitution, and it can avoid revolution. So what form of government can avoid revolution? According to Aristotle, polity can avoid revolution. Right. So this is about Aristotle's theory of revolution, and we have been able to complete revolution now. So we have still 1 more hour. So I'm going to start a new topic, and that topic would be Machiavelli, a very interesting philosopher you will find, Machiavelli. Any question if you have from Aristotle, you can ask. Machiavelli, a great political philosopher, a staunch realist, all right, staunch realist, born in Florence, an Italian province, belonged to a very affluent family, very well educated. And he was known for his realistic thought. For him, what ought to be is not important. What should be is not important. What is important is what is. For Plato, what ought to be was more important. What is was less important. So he is the one who is credited with coming out with a realist political philosophy. He was a staunch realist. So Machiavelli is credited with having given a realist political thought. He believed in complete separation of ethics from politics. He said politics doesn't have any kind of ethics. If you try to become ethical in politics, it is a very dangerous sign. Politics has its own ethics, and it is quite different from the moral ethics. Ethics for man, and ethics for ruler, ethics for a common man, and ethics for a ruler, they are two entirely different things. Rulers have their own ethics. Politics has its own ethics. Don't try to use general ethics, the public ethics, or the morality in politics. So if you compare Gandhi with Machiavelli, there is a great difference. Gandhiji wanted to bring about ethics in politics. He wanted to use religion for spiritualizing politics. All right. But Machiavelli is entirely different. He says, no question and no possibility of ethics and morality in politics. He was a great realist. All right. Now, so he was an advocate of real politics. What is real politics? He knew the reality of politics, about the human nature. He says that, in fact, he did not believe in the goodness of the human being. He did not believe in the goodness of the human nature. He says people are suffering from, he uses the term, universal egoism. Everybody is so much egoistic. He uses the concept of universal egoism. He considers people to be selfish, ungrateful, fickle-minded, greedy, coward. I mean, all bad words about the human nature he has come out with. He says, maybe people in Florence at that point of time, they were of that nature, we do not know. But in general, the people were like that. By looking into the example of Florence, by looking into the conflict that was going on in Italy at that point of time, he came out with his theory. So he did not believe in the goodness of human being. He said that the human beings, they are selfish, they're ungrateful, they're fickle-minded, they're wicked, they're coward, they're greedy. All right. He says the main motive behind the human conduct is selfishness and egoism of the people. What people do, how people do, is always influenced by the selfishness and egoism of the people. And the most dominant factor in human life, according to Machiavelli, was the fear of the people. And he wanted rulers to exploit the fear of the people, because people are always fearful. So he wanted the rulers to exploit the fear of the people to establish and perpetuate the state's control over the people. In fact, Machiavelli's thought was the beginning of a new age in politics. Now, why I'm saying new age in politics? Because he was a transitional thinker. Why transitional thinkers? Because we were coming out of medieval age and we were entering into a modern age. So that is why the period to which Machiavelli belongs, all right, world was coming out of a medieval age and entering into a modern age. All right. So that is why he is known as a transitional thinker. Why? Because it was a period of transition from medieval age to the modern age. All right. Means he belonged to a period when medieval age was coming to an end and modern age was about to begin. So he belonged to that kind of tradition, that kind of age. All right. Two important books were written by Machiavelli. The first title of the first book was The Prince. The Prince means the ruler. And in that book, he has given different kind of suggestion to the rulers, how to come into power, how to remain into power. So entire suggestion which is given by Machiavelli in his book, The Prince. So the entire book is called a theory of the statecraft. And why it is called statecraft? It's how to make the state very strong, how the ruler should be coming into power, and when they come into power, how should they maintain themselves in power, perpetuate themselves in power. So basically, the book Prince is entirely devoted on giving suggestion to the rulers, how they can strengthen their rule, how can they strengthen their state. All right. So in the book, The Prince, he is giving support for the monarchy. He has preferred monarchy as a form of government in his first book, The Prince. But in the second book that he came out with later, he is giving preference for republic, elected form of government. In the first book, The Prince, he's preferring monarchy, but in the second book, Discourses, he's supporting republican form of government. All right. Now, Machiavelli is considered to be the most unfortunate political philosopher. Why most unfortunate political philosopher? Because of the reality which he has tried to expose. He is a political philosopher who is criticized the most in political philosophy. Why I'm saying that Machiavelli is the most unfortunate political philosopher? Because he is the one who is criticized the most, yet he is the one which is practiced the most. What my point? Why is unfortunate political philosopher? Because Machiavelli was a realist political philosopher. He exposed everyone. He was the ultimate realist. He was the ultimate realist of the politics and power. He knew the ins and outs of power. So he's criticized the most because of the reality which he has written. But he is the one who is practiced the most. That is why we call him. So you criticize him also and you practice him also. So that is why he's called known as the most unfortunate political philosopher. In fact, Machiavellian tactics, Machiavelli has become a bad word in politics because of the kind of prescription which has given, because of the kind of prescription that Machiavelli has given. Machiavelli has become the bad word in politics. In fact, if you look into the works of William Shakespeare, right, he's using the name of Machiavelli to project all the shrewd characteristics in his play. What a point. Shakespeare is using the word Machiavelli to project all his negative role players, negative characteristics in his play. All right. So Machiavelli is a political philosopher who is practiced the most and criticized the most. All right. Let us try to understand why he gave such a kind of philosophy. What is the reason behind that? In fact, as I have told you, Machiavelli belonged to Florence in Italy. And at that point of time, Italy was in great crisis. Right? Italy, which was a seat of a great Roman Empire, a great civilization, everybody knows that. Right? It had 5 provinces, 5 principalities. Right? But all the 5 principalities of Italy, they're fighting with each other. All right. So Italy, which was once known as a great civilization and great culture, had lost all its respectability in the world. Why? Because of a fight, because of the clashes between 5 different principalities of, or 5 different provinces of Italy. All right. Machiavelli was convinced about the fact that if Italy has to regain its greatness, all right, that would not be possible. Italy would never be able to achieve its greatness, which was there in the past, unless and until all the 5 principalities, they are united, and unless and until people of the Italy as a whole, they get united. So in order to create a unity among the principalities in Italy, and in order to establish a very strong monarchy which could control, who could control the conflict that is going on in Italy. A ruler which could rule with an iron hand. Because in his opinion, one thing was very clear. Only a strong ruler who is capable of ruling with an iron hand, only that kind of ruler could take Italy out of this crisis-like situation. That is why he had given a host of suggestive measures to be taken by that ruler in order to restore the honor and pride that Italy once used to enjoy. Right. And what was the major obstacle in this goal? Major obstacle in this goal was the institution of the church. Church was a very, very powerful institution in Europe and particularly in Italy at that point of time. Right. And church was the biggest obstacle. And that is why he wanted to keep religion and spirituality, the church, out of politics. Because at that point of time, church was very active in politics. They had all the power. What is the methodology of that has been followed amicably? Unlike Plato, unlike Hegel, unlike Plato, unlike Socrates, who preferred the philosophical method, Machiavelli preferred the psychological method. He wanted to study the psychology of the people. He wanted rulers to understand the psychology of the people. So in order to understand politics, he wanted to study the psychology of the people. So he wanted to establish the supremacy of psychology over politics. He was not bothered about the ideas. He was not bothered about this. He was not bothered about that world, the world of God. He was bothered only about this world. So he preferred psychological method. He preferred psychology over philosophy to understand the politics. He said that if you want to understand politics, you don't have to study philosophy. You have to study the psychology of the people. In order to understand politics, in order to truly understand politics, you have to use psychological method. You have to study the psychology of the people. And secondly, he advocated the use of history, study of history, to understand the law of practice. And when you study the history, you will find out that how and why human psychology have always played a very important role in politics. So two methodology. One, use of psychology over philosophy. And secondly, study of history to understand the law in practice. Now, after giving you the background, now we're coming to the mainstream thought of Machiavelli. Very, very interesting, you will find. The book, The Prince, title of the book, The Prince. It is known as the best book ever written in the field of politics or in the field of statecraft. So if you get a question on statecraft, don't get confused. It is all in form of prescription that has been prescribed by Machiavelli for the rulers to strengthen the state. All right. It is called statecraft. But the prince that Machiavelli refers to is not an hereditary prince, that after king's death, his son would become the king, and after his death, his son would become king. It is not an hereditary prince. When he has written book The Prince, it is not about the hereditary prince. In fact, he is using a term. I mean, the book is meant for political entrepreneurs. Are you getting a point? Those businessmen who are involved in politics. So he uses the term political entrepreneur. Are you getting a point? So his prescriptions are, or the book, The Prince, is not meant for hereditary prince, but it is meant for political entrepreneurs rather than a hereditary prince. So the book is nothing but a set of prescriptions, a set of practical advice, and it is in the form of statecraft. According to Machiavelli, Aristotle says, most other philosophers, most other political scientists, they call politics, they use the term political science. So politics is science. All right. Machiavelli says politics is not a science. Politics is an art. Politics is a technique. Politics is a technique used by the ruler to establish its control over the state. So it is not a science. It is an art. It is a technique. Technique of what? Machiavelli says politics is a technique. Politics is an art of coming into power and remaining in power. What is politics? Politics is an art of coming into power and how to remain in power. That is what is statecraft all about. All right. This means, can we say that? How can we define statecraft? Statecraft is management of power. What is statecraft? Statecraft is management of power. Why I'm calling it management power? Why? Because it tells you how to come into power and how to remain into power. So statecraft is nothing but a concept of power management. And what is that? How to come into power and how to remain in power. This is what the statecraft is all about. Now I will be using so many quotations. In Machiavelli, you cannot understand without understanding the quotation. So I will be using frequently some original quotations given by Machiavelli. All right. And kindly put all your attention here. All right. The first advice of Machiavelli, and that advice is dealing with political realism. Okay. What he says? How we live is far more important than how we ought to live. What is it? He says how we live is far more important than how we ought to live. He goes on to say that those who overlook how we live and give preference to how we ought to live, they are going to bring ruin to the society. They are going to bring ruin to themselves, and they are going to bring ruin to the state also. I'll repeat this, what I have said. How we live is far more important than how we ought to live. And those who overlook how we live and give preference to how we ought to live, they are going to bring ruin to themselves, as they are going to bring ruin to the state also. All right. Again, to quote Machiavelli, what he says, the prince means the ruler. The prince who tries to find out goodness in everyone, as Gandhiji had said. Again, let us compare Machiavelli and Gandhi. What Gandhi said, you try to find out goodness in every little bit of goodness in every bad person. Love the seen, not the sinner. So we can always contrast Gandhi and Machiavelli. He says a prince who tries to find out goodness in all profession is bound to suffer. And before that, what I had said, the prince who tries to find out goodness in everyone is bound to suffer because the person with whom he is dealing, they are not so good. So he wanted the ruler not to believe in the goodness of the people, because people in general, they are not so good. Don't trust the people. So two things. Don't try to find out goodness in the people, and don't try to find out goodness in any profession. All right. So any ruler who is trying to find out goodness in the people is bound to suffer. And any ruler, any prince who is trying to find out goodness in any profession, okay, they are also bound to suffer. Why? Because people are not good in general, not so good whom we are considering to be good. Means his first advice that comes out of what we have discussed so far, he wanted his ruler, he wanted his prince to understand the world of politics as it is, not as how it ought to be. That was the point. He wanted his ruler to understand the politics as it is, not as how it ought to be. Again, his prescription is not about what should be the quality, how the prince should be. No, he wanted to find out, how the prince is. That is more important. We say that the prince has to come out of, he wanted his prince to come out of the world of ideas. Very clear. He wanted his, so if you compare Plato with the Machiavelli, you will find the difference. He wanted his prince, he wanted a ruler to come out of the world of ideas, as we find in case of Plato. Because according to Machiavelli, the world of ideas is nothing but a world of illusion, quite in contrast with Plato. So according to Plato, this world is a world of illusion. But according to Machiavelli, that world, the world of God, okay, is a world of illusion. So Machiavelli says the world of ideas is a world of illusion. All right. So he says that understanding of the real world and understanding of the real people is very important. Understand the world as it is. Understand the people as they are. He says the field of politics is not so good. It's not so inspiring. But this is as it is. This is as it is. Nothing can be done about that. So what we find in his theory, an autonomous, he has tried to describe the autonomous nature of politics. That politics is an autonomous discipline. Don't try to study politics from the point of view of ethics. Don't try to study politics from the point of view of individual. Don't try to study politics from the point of view of morality. have to do that. You are likely to fail. Because the nature of politics is such. So by giving this explanation about politics, basically what he has tried to do, he has tried to develop an autonomous nature of politics. What a point. So if we try to analyze what I have explained so far, as I have told you, Machiavelli's age was the beginning of realism, and everything that he has said, every suggestion that he has given for the prince, for the ruler, is all an outcome of his analysis of human nature. Why he wanted his ruler to be very shrewd. Why he wanted the ruler to be very cunning. Because of the human nature. I've already, when I started, I told you about the human nature, what Machiavelli thinks about the human nature. He says that people are selfish, coward, fickle-minded, ungrateful, greedy, all things I have told you. He says people are very greedy by nature. And he explains this by saying that man forgets the loss of his father, but he will not forget the loss of his patrimony or property. A great statement made by Machiavelli, that man can forget the loss of his father, but he will never forget the loss of his property or the loss of his patrimony. That is why he says, to quote Machiavelli, what he says, man forgets the loss of his father, but he will never forget the loss of his patrimony or property. So, wise king or wise prince does not confiscate, rather he executes. I'll repeat. Man forgets the loss of his father, but he will not forget the loss of his patrimony or property. Therefore, wise king, wise prince will not confiscate, rather he will execute. What is the meaning of this? See, the wise prince is such who will never confiscate the property of the people, because man will never forget that. All right? And he will make all possible efforts to take revenge from you. So, don't confiscate the property of the people. If you have to do anything, you can execute the person, finish off the person. So instead of confiscating the property of the person, all right, you just execute the people, just kill the person, but don't confiscate. Means such a statement given by Machiavelli, if we analyze them, what we find that all statement, all description that Machiavelli has given is out of the true understanding of the human psychology. When he says that man can forget the loss of his death of his father, but he will not forget the loss of his patrimony, a great statement. And he has understood the human psychology. All right. So, understanding of human psychology is a better guide to study the politics than philosophy. So, according to Machiavelli, understanding of human psychology is a better guide than study of philosophy, if you want to understand politics. All right. He said history is cyclical. And since it is cyclical, history is likely to repeat. History repeats. Why history repeats? Because the nature of man is never going to change. That is how he explains. The history is cyclical, it is likely to repeat, it repeats itself. And why it repeats? Because nature of man is such. Nature of man will never change. And what is the most essential characteristic of human nature? He says selfishness is the most essential characteristic of human nature. Why man is selfish? He explains, because man is ungrateful. It is because of his selfishness that man is ungrateful. The ruler may have done so many good things for the people, but any small loss of property because of the state will never be tolerated by the people. I can give you an example why people are ungrateful. 100 good things that a person does, that will not be remembered if one mistake is done by that person. So people are ungrateful. They will forget 100 good things done by the person, but they will remember one bad thing, one not so good thing done by a person. That is a human nature. So people are selfish. That is why they are ungrateful. This is how Machiavelli explains. Machiavelli says, men will forget the favor, as I have just explained now. Men will forget the favor done by a prince. People will forget the favor that has been done by the prince to the people because they are very selfish. All right. So why is he saying all this? He's saying all this because never take the support of people for granted. He's advising the prince, he's advising the ruler, don't take the support of the people for granted. That is why it is said, no permanent enemy, no permanent friend. What is permanent is your self-interest. And he says, the ruler should manipulate the human weakness. What is the human weakness? Just I have explained 2 moments back, if you remember. That human weakness, man is fearful. All right. Says that prince can manipulate the weakness of the human nature. The weakness of the human nature is fear about the loss of their possession. What is the most important fear in the mind of the people? The property which they have accumulated, the wealth that they have accumulated, they may be lost. So, he says, the prince should exploit this weakness. Which weakness? Weakness of property. So people are always fearful that the property, the possession which they have, they may be lost. Right. So he says, if prince can assure the security of the property of the people, all right, people will always obey the laws of the state. So if you want people to obey the law of the state out of fear, what you are required to do, you provide them a guarantee, you provide them the assurance about the protection of their property. And so long as their property are protected, this is according to Machiavelli, they will continue to follow, they will continue to obey the law of the state. Right. So he says, it is better to be feared than loved. All right. Don't expect love from the people. Let people remain fearful, because so long as they are fearful, only till then you will be able to perpetuate your control over them. And he says, don't expect that people should be loving you or you should be loving the people. Don't expect that. Fear is most important thing. All right. Fear is preferable to the love. All right. So policy of fear is preferable to policy of love. All right. Therefore, he says that wise prince or the wise ruler is one, okay, who does what he wills, what he wants, what he wills, and not what the others will, what the others want. Wise prince is one who does what he is willing, what he wills, and not the will of others or what the others want. All right. Another important advice, that is about property and women. The point I have already explained earlier, briefly I will talk about that. He says the another advice which he gives to the prince, that is because of the greedy nature of man, because of the greediness of man. He says people are extremely greedy, the point I've always made. Say that man has so much love for property because they are greedy, they have so much of love for the property. Okay. So prince should always ensure the material welfare of the people. Are you a point? Because the people, they have so much of love for their possession, for the property. So the wise prince is one, the wise ruler is one who can ensure the material welfare of the people. Number one. All right. So one, he will ensure the material welfare of the people. And second point is that he will never touch the property of the people. Wise prince is one who is ensuring the material welfare of the people. And secondly, a wise prince is one who will never touch the property of the people, will never touch the possession of the people. So two things the prince would never touch, the rulers would never touch. One, the possession of the people, the property of the people. And second, the woman of the people. Don't touch, because you will be overthrown. Nobody can tolerate something wrong being done to the woman folk of their family. So he says, don't touch the property of the people and don't touch the woman of the people. Don't touch, never try to do that. So that is why he says, people are possessive about property, and hence people are very much possessive about the property and about the woman. So wise prince will prefer to execute rather than confiscating the property of the people. I've already explained earlier. Okay. So that is why he says the people can forget the loss of the father. They can forget the death of the father, but they will never forget the loss of their patrimony or property. All right. Now, if you try to analyze whatever we have discussed so far, if you try to critically evaluate whatever we have discussed so far, I'm slightly following a different methodology. Instead of doing the criticism at the end, so because we are forgetting the point, so what I'll be doing is that I'll be doing a critical evaluation of whatever I have discussed so far. So both views of Machiavelli about the human nature and about his suggestion that people will forget the loss of the death of the father and not the loss of his patrimony. See, both the suggestion that has been prescribed by the prince in his book, The Prince, they cannot be accepted in its totality. What two things? One is analysis of the human nature, and the suggestion that a prince should not touch the property because people will forget the loss of the father, but not the loss of his patrimony. If we look into his analysis of human nature, we find that his analysis of human nature is partially true. It is not completely true. Means his analysis of human nature cannot be accepted in its totality. Saying that there is no goodness in man is an extreme viewpoint. Saying that man has no goodness in extreme viewpoint. Saying that men people are only greedy and greedy, that is also extreme viewpoint. So his analysis of human nature is partial. His analysis of history is also wrong. In history, we get all kinds of people. We get good people, we get bad people. So what we can say about his analysis is that Sabine, a political scientist and political philosopher, Sabine, he wrote his book. Sabine wrote a book, History of Political Theory. Sabine says, while talking about Machiavelli, says that Machiavelli is narrowly dated and narrowly located. Narrowly dated and narrowly located. What is the meaning of narrowly dated? Means whatever he's talking about only a specific period. That is why it's narrowly dated and narrowly located, because it takes into consideration only what is happening in Italy, and that too in Florence. So he has not been able to come out of Italy. So that is why Sabine says the theory, the thought which Machiavelli is given, and his analysis of human nature is narrowly dated, only confined to that particular period of time, and narrowly located, only concerning Italy. All right, so it cannot be entirely true, and it can only be partially true. People are selfish, but there is some goodness in people also that he has forgotten. So suggestions which Machiavelli has given to the prince is too much influenced by Italy's events and too much influenced by the time. So that is why Sabine has said it is narrowly dated and narrowly located. All right. So Machiavelli's prescription about the possessiveness of man, that he was so much possessive about the property, it is just because of the nature of man specific to that period of time. All right. So Machiavelli belonged to an age when religion was coming to an end, all right, and science and materialism, when age of religion was coming to an end, and age of science and materialism was taking over. All right. What I'm trying to tell you is that Machiavelli's thought cannot be neither entirely rejected nor can be entirely accepted. Machiavelli's thought can neither be entirely rejected or entirely accepted. All right. But from the point of view of realist, the argument, the logic which is given by Machiavelli has got a weight, no doubt. So you cannot entirely reject the theory, his thought, nor can you entirely accept his thought. Means in Machiavelli's thought, we find more description about the hard power. You know, he wants his prince to be using hard power, always hard power. Joseph Nye, Josephnye. All of you are aware of the concept of soft power. It was Joseph Nye who gave the concept of soft power. Talking about Machiavelli, it is said, Joseph Nye says, that the nature of power in 21st century has changed. We can't talk only in terms of hard power as Machiavelli has tried to do. Okay. Because power is not always coercive. Power is also used to influence the people, soft power. If soft power can fail, hard power can also fail. You have to understand that. If soft power fails, hard power can also fail. So what is needed is the use of both soft power and hard power. Machiavelli should have used both the goodness of the human being as well as the badness of the human being. But what Machiavelli has done, he has talked only about the bad nature of the human being. So Joseph Nye rightly says, nature of power in 21st century has changed. Gone are the days when you used to talk only in terms of hard power, community power. No. Soft power is also used to influence the people. All right. And he said that use of soft power is less expensive, less costly than hard power. Another important point, another important advice that Machiavelli has given to the prince. He says, prince means the ruler. must have the quality of both lion and fox. Prince must have the quality of both lion and fox. What is the meaning of fox and lion? Quality of fox, because fox is the one who is so cunning, so shrewd. He wanted his prince to be fox-like because only then he can understand the trap of others. He will not be trapped by anyone, only when he has the quality of a fox. So, Machiavelli wants his prince to be a quality of a fox as well as quality of a lion. Lion means somebody who can defend himself, somebody who can kill, who can defend himself. So he has to be strong like lion, and he has to be cunning and shrewd like fox. He says, prince has to be cold-blooded. Prince has to be like a cold-blooded man. As lion is cold-blooded, so prince has to be a cold-blooded man. All right. As Plato had said, common man cannot be the ruler. Philosopher king should have the extraordinary qualities. Like that, Machiavelli also, though the suggestions are entirely different, but there is a similarity between Machiavelli and Plato. What is the similarity? That Plato wanted his rulers to be exceptional, have exceptional quality, a man of gold. An ordinary person could never become a ruler, could never become a philosopher king. Similarly, Machiavelli also clarified that normal people cannot become a ruler. Right? Means normal people means common man. They can never become a prince. They can never become a ruler. For becoming a prince, one needs to be both mentally and physically strong. Mentally strong, fox. Physically strong, lion. Say to become a prince, to become a ruler, common man cannot become a ruler. Because to become a ruler, you need to be both mentally and physically strong. So, mentally strong, have a quality like a fox. Physically strong, have a quality of a lion. All right. Means prince must have, the ruler must have shrewdness and cleverness like the fox, and not the reasoning of Plato. Plato's reasoning is not required. What is required is shrewdness. All right. So, when Machiavelli says all this, he is clarifying the fact that it is not within the rich, it is not within the rich and capacity of a common man to become a prince. If you remember, when we're discussing elitist theory of power or elitist theory of power, we had talked about Pareto, P-A-R-E-T-O. So Machiavelli had deeply influenced the people like thinkers like Pareto, when Pareto had said that the rulers, while talking about the elitist theory of power, he had said the rulers must have a quality of both fox and lion. I get your point. So Pareto was influenced by Machiavelli when he had said that the rulers, the ruling class, must have the quality of both lion and fox. Right. So even in modern times, even in the age of democracy, we cannot overlook Machiavelli. We cannot ignore Machiavelli's advice, because for any state, it is very important to be both intelligent, to be both mentally intelligent. It is very important for the rulers to be mentally alert, mentally intelligent, and military powerful. even when we are living in the age of democracy, it is very important for the rulers to be mentally very strong and militarily very powerful. The states should be, the rulers who are ruling the state should be mentally very strong, and it should be backed by the adequate military power. All right. Now, the people, this what Machiavelli had prescribed cannot entirely be ignored even in modern times. If we can compare the two prime ministers for a moment, kindly do not use the example which I am giving you in the examination, all this, just to make you understand. We had a leader like Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the prime minister. And we had a leader like Narendra Modi, who is the prime minister, and you can feel the difference. You can see that we can compare, we can see that the current prime minister Narendra Modi is a strong person. All right, he can also be called a very shrewd person who can understand the politics and who can understand the world politics, because the politics and the world politics and the national politics and international politics, the language of power has to be understood. Right. So a ruler must have the quality of both lion and fox while dealing with a country like China, while dealing with a country like Pakistan, who is doing cross-border terrorism. You must have the quality of a lion. All right. And you also should have, in order to deal with shrewdness of China, in order to deal with the shrewdness of a country like Pakistan, in order to deal with the shrewdness like the United States of America, you need to have the quality of a fox also. So in its entirety, the theory, the suggestions, the prescriptions given by Machiavelli cannot entirely be ignored even in the contemporary period. All right. Now, the next important point, and that we'll take up tomorrow, that is advice to the prince in the field of religion and morality. What is the relationship between, what should be the relationship between politics and religion and morality? About that, we will be talking about tomorrow. So ethical and moral and religious dimension of politics, that aspect we will take up tomorrow. All right. Any question if you have in mind, you can ask. Why are we more emphasizing on property, besides property will be well taken care of when it's private property? See, don't mix up two philosophers. Don't mix up Aristotle. What you are doing is that you are asking a good question, but you are mixing up two philosophers. You are mixing up Aristotle with Machiavelli. That is not going to work. All right. Now, Machiavelli has given a different reasoning. Machiavelli's advice for the prince to take care of the property of the people has a different reason. Why? Because people are too much possessive of the property. That is a different reason. But when Aristotle is defending the institution of private property, it is because of the utility factor, the functionalist factor. But when Machiavelli is talking about property, he is talking about from the human nature point of view. So they are two entirely different things and two entirely different interpretation. So why you are mixing up the two things, that is why you are getting confused. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you all of you. God bless all of you. See you tomorrow, same time. Thank you.